GameRanx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and our thoughts on the latest games releasing. Today we're talking about Hitman, the complete first season. I don't know if you guys know, but the game has been released episodically throughout the course of a year, and now the game is getting its final full release. If you are a console player, you're now able to go into a store and buy a disc-based version of this game. So that was a good reason. We've decided to revisit Hitman because I covered the first episode way back when, almost a year ago, in a Before You Buy. And looking back, it's very hard to judge the entire game from then. Back when I first played it, I thought it was solid Hitman gameplay that was unfortunately hampered by the decision to release it episodically. After another episode or two released, I realized I was totally wrong. Hitman 2016 turned out to be one of the only good examples of how to break up a game and release it episodically, at least in this instance, because it's very non-traditional. Now, while I still would have enjoyed a full game release straight up as normal, which many people picking it up for the first time are now going to get, the things IO Interactive did with the release format makes it feel much more justified. This Hitman game feels like it emphasizes gameplay over anything else. More than any other Hitman game before it, the focus is super concentrated here on learning ins and outs of like the really big levels and using an open-ended amount of ways to accomplish your objectives, which all usually around killing dudes. Now the magic here is really behind the curtain and once you get into the meat of things, because Hitman looks somewhat realistic and serious, but the gameplay itself doesn't take itself seriously, and that makes the whole thing refreshing as hell. You're doing goofy, unrealistic things. Let's be real. The characters in the game, the AI, can be kind of dumb. You kill people in cartoonish ways. But that's not really criticism, it's just the style of Hitman. And despite some faults that some hardcore stealth players can find, you have to admit though, it still manages to be a really challenging and satisfying game. This game is incredibly difficult, and while objectives and guide markers that previous Hitman games didn't have may make you feel like your hand is being held a bit too much, you realize that this game does just throw you to the wolves, and it's up to you to figure out what you want to do and how you want to tackle any objective. If you are a console player and you are to buy the complete first season, you get the intro stuff, you get the Paris map, Sapienza, Marrakesh, Colorado, and Hokkaido. You also get a few download codes for some DLC type stuff like new items and new suits. And it's also worth mentioning that while most of the game is a big install on your console, there's also still a 12 gig patch or something to download. That's just me letting you know that, but that's besides the point. What I was trying to say is that the levels here are gorgeous, and not just how they look, but how they're designed. With each level and like the menu that you look at the level, there's so many options and modes and ways to play that are thankfully actually pretty engaging thanks to a reward track called Mastery, which through that and playing through levels you can earn and unlock different tools and scenarios to tackle a level. And that's what makes it good. As open-ended as it is, you're always working towards something, and it's going to take you a long time to master each and every individual level. And if you're into that type of thing, and this Hitman game is very much based around replaying levels and replay value, you're going to get a lot of gameplay out of this. Now, I will acknowledge as a person who's been playing Hitman from the beginning, it's a little bit of a far cry from how the previous Hitman games were designed. You know, you just play through each level. But I think what the developers are leaning on here is the fact that people would play all the Hitman levels and then go back and immediately replay the story again. And that gameplay, like I said, is what they're really emphasizing here. I will say though that because of that and because of the episodic nature of this game, the story really suffered. You do get cutscenes setting up and ending every single chapter, but I'm gonna be honest, to me at least, they were totally lame and did nothing. While the previous game, Hitman Absolution, went overboard, this new Hitman game was too little too late, and none of it really stacks up to the old Hitman games, even though they didn't have much going on either. But like I said, this Hitman is all gameplay, so someone looking for a cohesive narrative and story, you might be a little let down. In terms of how it actually plays, it plays like a Hitman game. If you've never played a Hitman game before, know that it's a little bit more emphasizing slow-paced, walking and movement and disguising yourself and slowly getting around a level through social interactions or through sneaking around. And it all plays just as well as any other fine-tuned Hitman game would. I will say that they changed the shooting this time around, and while you don't fire your gun often, the aiming and everything just doesn't feel completely right to me, but maybe that's just a personal taste. It's also worth mentioning all the extra stuff you get and the reasons to keep replaying levels. There's escalations that add a bit more fun factor, I guess, and challenge by making you carry out an assassination 5 different times, and it gets harder and harder each time and more complex. There's also the new professional difficulty mode, and I only just recently figured out that that comes with its own separate mastery track, so if you're a real completionist, that's right up your alley. Then, of course, there's the elusive targets, which have been absolutely awesome in giving this game life while it was an episodic game, and Square Enix tells me that they are still going to be putting out elusive targets. It's still going to be event-based, thankfully. And then, of course, there's also community creation created challenges, some of which are pretty decent. There's some shitty, boring ones there, but I guess it's a nice little feature if that's your thing. But if you can't tell, I really enjoy Hitman. We all do here at gameranx. When we were deliberating our Game of the Year list, it came very high on our list. It's a good game that makes you actually have to use your brain and be patient. And while it doesn't play like a traditional stealth game, that using your brain makes it feel very much like an old school stealth game. There's a lot of gameplay here, and it's all really special. But that's it, guys. You know how Before You Buy works. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion thrown in there, but now I definitely want to hear yours. Whether or not you've been playing the game. If you've been playing it since the first release, I want to hear from you. Has it held up? And if you haven't touched it at all, now that it's on a disc or a physical release, or you can just play through it all on your PC, are you going to give it a shot? If you have any complaints about the game, let me know, but also let me know your favorite way to take out a target. I definitely want to hear that. I think mine involves sushi and Hokkaido, but I don't really want to spoil anything. Let me know anything you want about Hitman down in the comments. I'll be there, but I'll also be on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jake Baldino if you have any questions as well. You guys know the deal though by now. Clicking the like button helps us out, and if you're new, subscribing is a good idea because we put out videos like this every single day. We're actually putting out more Before You Buys if you haven't noticed. But as always, I'm Jake Baldino. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Greed and ignorance, my friend.